Wanted to know about the diving boards. Saturday arrived hot and sunny. We drove 40 minutes to the coast, the kids chattering about swimming and seeing their cousins. I hadn't been to the beach house in months. We arrived to find the driveway packed. Through the gate, I could see at least 50 people around the pool, extended family, mom's friends, neighbors. The kids ran ahead in their swimsuits, towels trailing behind them. I followed with our beach bag, sunscreen, and a fruit salad I'd brought to contribute. Mom stood near the pool in an expensive cover-up, holding court with a group of her book club friends. She saw us approaching, and her expression shifted. "What are you doing here?" she asked, loudly enough that nearby conversations stopped. "You texted me about the party," I said, confused. "Saturday at 2. That was meant for your sister. I must have hit your contact by mistake." Lily and Owen stood next to me, confusion on their faces. They were already in their swimsuits, ready to jump in. "Well, we're here now," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "The kids are excited to swim. Get out of the pool." Mom shouted suddenly. I realized Lily had already climbed down the ladder into the shallow end. "This party is for respectable family only, not divorced failures." Every conversation around the pool stopped. 50 guests turned to stare. Lily froze in the water, her face crumbling. Owen pressed against my leg. "Mom," I said quietly, "they're children. They just want to swim. They can swim at public pools with other children from broken homes. This is a private party for family members who've made good choices." She looked at Lily, still standing in the pool. I said, "Get out." My 8-year-old daughter climbed out of the pool, water streaming off her, tears rolling down her face. I wrapped a towel around her shoulders. "Let's go, kids," I said softly. "But we just got here," Owen whispered. "I wanted to see the beach." "I know, baby. We'll go to a different beach." I gathered our things while 50 people watched in silence. My sister stood near the barbecue, looking at her feet. My brother sat in a lounge chair, suddenly fascinated by his phone. Not one person spoke up. Mom followed us to the gate. "And don't come back. I'm tired of pretending your life choices haven't embarrassed this family. A failed marriage, a mediocre job, raising kids alone. You're an example of what not to become." I loaded my crying children into the car and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I could see the party resuming, people returning to their conversations as if nothing had happened. "Why does Grandma hate us?" Laylee asked from the backseat. "She doesn't hate you, sweetheart." "She does. She said we're from a broken home." I had no good answer for that. We drove to a public beach instead, where the kids swam in the ocean, and I sat in the sand trying to process what had just happened. By evening, they were exhausted and sunburned despite reapplying sunscreen. We drove home in silence. That night, after putting them to bed, I sat in my home office and pulled out a file I kept in my desk drawer: property documents, deed records, rental agreements. The beach house my mother loved so much, the one she'd been renting for 3 years at below market rates, was mine. I'd bought it 6 years ago as an investment property, one of 4 rental homes I owned along the coast. What Mom didn't know, what nobody in my family knew, was that I wasn't a failure with a mediocre job. I was a software engineer who'd spent 10 years building and selling applications. The last one had sold for enough money that I'd been able to invest in real estate while still working full-time. My divorce wasn't a failure either. It was a decision to leave a marriage where I wasn't valued. I'd walked away with my dignity and enough settlement money to secure my children's future. The modest house I lived in, the practical car I drove, the simple clothes I wore, all choices. I lived well below my means because I was building wealth, not displaying it. I'd given Mom a special rental rate on the beach house because she was family, $1,200 a month for a property that could command $4,000 in the summer season. I'd justified it as helping her enjoy retirement. Now, sitting in my office listening to my daughter cry herself to sleep down the hall, I was done justifying. Monday morning, I called Coastal Property Management, the company that handled my rental portfolio. "Jennifer, it's Melissa. I need you to send a lease termination notice to 847 Shore Drive." "Your mother's place? Is she moving?" "Not voluntarily. 60-day notice as of today." "Understood. I'll draft the notice today." I hung up and called my lawyer to review all my property holdings under my personal name. The notice went out Tuesday. By Wednesday, my phone was ringing. "What is this?" Mom's voice was sharp. "I got a notice that my lease isn't being renewed." "That's correct." "Why?" "I've been a perfect tenant. I pay on time. I take care of the property. The owner has decided not to renew. That's all you need to know. Well, who is the owner? I want to speak to them directly. This is outrageous. I've been here 3 years. I have rights. You have a month-to-month lease after the initial year. Either party can terminate with 60 days notice. You're getting 62 days actually. This is because of Saturday, isn't it? You called my landlord and complained. I didn't need to call anyone. Then why is this happening? You'll figure it out eventually. The notice has all the relevant information. She hung up on me. My phone rang again immediately. My sister this time. Mom is freaking out about the beach house. What did you do? Nothing. Her lease isn't being renewed. She thinks you're behind it somehow. Am I capable of that? I thought I was a divorce failure with a mediocre job. Look, she was harsh on Saturday. But you don't need to blow up her whole summer. I'm not blowing up anything. Her lease is ending. She can find another rental. In 60 days, during summer season, everything is booked. That's unfortunate. My sister paused. You really aren't going to help her? Why would I? She kicked my children out of a pool party, called them broken, humiliated them in front of 50 people. She was just setting boundaries. Then I'm setting mine. Goodbye, Amanda. The calls continued throughout the week. My brother left a voicemail saying I was being petty. Mom's sister called to lecture me. I ignored all of it and took my kids to the beach. This is better than Grandma's pool, Lily announced. Why's that? Because we're allowed to be here. Friday afternoon, my doorbell rang. Mom stood on my porch, her face red. We need to talk. I'm busy. 5 minutes, please. Against my better judgment, I let her in. The kids were at a neighbor's house, thankfully. I've spent all week trying to find a new rental. Everything is booked or twice what I'm paying now. She sat on my couch uninvited. I need you to talk to my landlord. Explain that it was a misunderstanding. I can't help you. Can't or won't. Both. Melissa, I'm your mother. I'm asking for help. You kicked my children out of a pool party. You called them broken in front of 50 people. I was trying to teach you about consequences. You made bad choices, and there are results from that. What bad choices? Leaving a marriage where I wasn't happy? Supporting myself and my children? Building a stable life? You're a single mother living in a tiny house, driving an old car. This house is 1,200 square feet and paid off. The car is 5 years old and reliable. I live within my means. Exactly, means that are clearly limited. I almost told her then, almost explained that my means were far more substantial than she'd ever imagined. But something stopped me. I can't help you with the landlord situation, I said. You need to leave now. She stood up, anger flashing. Fine, when I'm homeless this summer, you can live with that on your conscience. You won't be homeless. You have other options. She left, slamming the door. The 60 days ticked down. Mom continued calling, increasingly desperate. The beach house was apparently the centerpiece of her social life. She planned parties, invited friends for weekends, promised her book club would meet there monthly. Without it, she was facing either a much smaller apartment inland or a rental that would consume most of her retirement income. I felt a twinge of guilt, a small one. Then I'd remember Laylee's face as she climbed out of that pool, her humiliation in front of all those people, and the guilt evaporated. On day 45, my lawyer called. Your mother filed a complaint with the rental board claiming discrimination. On what grounds? Familial retaliation. She claims the landlord is refusing to renew because she exercised her right to exclude people from her private party. Her rental property isn't her private residence. She doesn't have the right to exclude my children from family events held at a place she doesn't own. I know that, but she's made a formal complaint. The board wants a response from the property owner. Schedule a hearing. I'll respond in person. The hearing was set for day 53. Mom showed up with a lawyer, clearly expecting to argue her case to some faceless property management company. Instead, she found me sitting at the respondent's table. What are you doing here? She demanded. The hearing officer looked up from her paperwork. Ms. Wilson is listed as the respondent property owner. That's impossible. I assure you it's not. The officer opened a file. Melissa Wilson purchased the property at 847 Shore Drive 6 years ago. She's been the owner for the duration of your tenancy. Mom's face went white. Her lawyer leaned over, whispering urgently. The beach house is yours. Mom's voice was barely audible. Yes. The whole time? Yes. And you let me rent it? I gave you a 70% discount on market rate. I thought I was helping family. The hearing officer cleared her throat. Ms. Wilson, your complaint alleges discrimination. Can you explain the grounds? Mom's lawyer spoke up. Our position is that the landlord is terminating the lease in retaliation for my client exercising her rights at a private event. The event in question was held at my property, I said calmly. A property Ms. Wilson doesn't own. She invited 50 guests to my beach house, then physically expelled my minor children from the premises while humiliating them publicly. I pulled out my phone and showed the officer photos. Lily and Owen in their swimsuits, excited for the party, time-stamped an hour before the event. Then screenshots of text messages from guests who had witnessed what happened. 3 people had messaged me afterward, appalled at Mom's behavior. My children were traumatized by being kicked out of a family event at my own property. I decided I no longer wanted to subsidize the rental of that property to someone who treats my children cruelly. The hearing officer read through everything. She looked at Mom. Ms. Wilson, this hearing is to determine if there's discrimination in housing. The property owner has the right to not renew a lease at the end of its term for any reason that doesn't violate protected class status. Family disputes don't qualify as discrimination. But she's doing this because I set boundaries, Mom protested. You set boundaries at her property regarding her children. She's now setting boundaries regarding her property. The officer closed the file. Complaint dismissed. The lease termination stands. We left the building separately. I was almost to my car when Mom caught up with me. I didn't know you owned that house. I know. All this time, you let me think I was renting from strangers. I wanted you to enjoy it without feeling obligated to me. And now you're taking it away. Yes. Because of one party, one bad day. Because you kicked my children out of a pool and called them broken in front of 50 people. Because not one person in our family stood up for them. Because you taught me that cruelty has consequences. I'm your mother. And they're my children. They come first. She looked at me for a long moment. What if I apologized? To me or to them? Both. It's too late for this lease. The notice has been given. But Mom, it was never really about the beach house. It's about how you treat people when you think they're beneath you. I don't think you're beneath me. You called me a divorce failure with a mediocre job. You said my children are from a broken home. You humiliated them publicly. I was trying to help you see that choices matter. They do. You made choices that day. I'm making choices now. I got in my car and drove away. The 60 days ended. Mom moved to a 2-bedroom apartment 30 miles inland. No ocean view. No pool. No beach house for her friends to admire. I kept the property off the rental market for 3 months, using it for weekends with my kids. We swam in that pool without anyone telling us we didn't belong. We walked on the beach collecting shells. We had barbecues and watched sunsets. Lily asked once if Grandma would ever say sorry. I don't know, sweetheart. If she does, would we forgive her? That depends on whether she means it and whether she changes how she acts. What if she doesn't? Then we keep building our own life, a good one, without people who make us feel small. Eventually, Mom did apologize. 6 months later, at Christmas, she knelt down and told Lily and Owen she'd been wrong, that they weren't broken and that she was sorry. Lily looked at me. I nodded. It's okay, Grandma, she said quietly. It wasn't perfect, but Mom started treating my children better. She started asking about my work with genuine interest. I rented the beach house to market-rate tenants. The income funded Lily and Owen's college accounts. And sometimes, on summer weekends, we'd go there ourselves. We'd swim in that pool where we had once been kicked out, and I'd remind them that dignity isn't about what other people think. It's about knowing your own worth, even when others can't see it.